Thank you very much for hosting us. I welcome you on Social Capital Karachi. I believe this is a study tour that you do, and a number of countries have been represented here. I'm seeing this, and I'm sad that last time when we were here, we had this terrible incident, the bomb blast. Karachi, 8 years ago, was rated as the 7th most dangerous city in the world. Since then, the government at the federal level, and primarily at the provincial level, has resolved to get rid of terrorism. Have resolved to get rid of terrorism. Our police force, our rangers, of the law enforcement agencies have taken down their lives. And we were able to, we are at the stage where from the 7th most dangerous city in the world, where some crime index that we do currently is at number 125 or something. We do have issues. We've had 2 incidents in the last 1 month. One was at the University of Karachi, where 3 Chinese teachers, along with a Pakistani driver, were martyred. Yesterday we had the sad incident where a young boy of 24-year-old young boy lost his life. So sad that you had to experience that last night, but I assure you, you'd find the city live, and we passed those bad times, but we are still striving hard to make sure that we sustain this peace in the city and this country.
Chief Minister, sir, thank you for receiving the RCS delegation today. You may be aware that we bring together 47 countries from around the world to study in London, and they study security, strategy and leadership. And the reason that we're travelling over the next 3 weeks is to take the learning of the course that they've been on since last September and test it in the real world. So to gather information firsthand, to compare what they've read and what they've heard in the lecture halls of Seaford House with the experiences of real people on the ground. So that's why they're here. The RCDS way is very much to make the members the centre of what we do. And if you're comfortable, it would be wonderful if the members were given the opportunity to perhaps ask some questions of you and to test their understanding as we leave Pakistan tomorrow. That's very kind of you, sir. RCDS, the floor is yours.
Chambers on.
If you want,
Thank you. My name's Grant Chambers. I'm from Australia, and Pakistan and Australia share some similarities in terms of the federated system. We spent a few days in Islamabad at the start of our tour and have had an opportunity to see some of the more outlying parts of Pakistan. And I'd be interested in your reflections on points of tension that exist between the provincial and federal level of government. I'd reflect that in Australia, for example, during COVID, there was great tension around distribution of funds for healthcare. So I wonder if you'd be able to share with us points of tension between provincial and federal government and how you overcome those.
Okay, we've got a constitution which delineates the functions of the federal government and the provincial government and how we interact with each other. So the constitution is very clear. I'll just touch upon a few items. For example, maintenance of law and order is purely a provincial function, but intelligence is a federal function, though we've got our own provincial intelligence systems also in the police. For instance, the fight against terrorism, we've got a Anti-Terrorism Act, which is a federal law, but it empowers the provincial governments also in certain cases to act under the Anti-Terrorist Act. Apart from that, I believe you mentioned the health. You mentioned the health system. Health again is a provincial subject. It used to be on the shared list until 2010, and now it's purely provincial. But again, areas where it's the drug licensing, import of drugs, import of medicines is still a federal subject. If you get a chance, I was just before coming over this morning. The Karachi Chamber does an annual event called My Karachi, the business community, and I was there. We did not have it for the last 2 years because of COVID, and after 2019 we were having now. So I went there in the morning. On my way back, I went to the Jinnah Hospital, where one of the injured of the blast last night, because the blast last night, one died. There were 10 injured. Out of the 10, 8 have been were discharged last night. One of them was operated upon, and I went to see him. And this Jinnah Hospital used to be a federal hospital until 2011. After the 18th Amendment in 2010, it was given to us, and we made tremendous investments, especially in the tertiary care. And the place I went to was the new surgical complex, which only 2 months ago, Chairman of Pakistan People's Party, Bilawal Bhutto Zardari, had inaugurated. And it's a world-class facility, the surgical complex that we have there. And apart from that, we've made lots of investment in cardiac hospitals all over the province. So, to answer your question, the functions of the provincial and the federal government are very clearly mentioned in the Constitution. How we work with each other is mentioned. There's also a system where the federal government or the provincial government can assign some of the functions to the counterpart. There are interprovincial issues for which we've got a Council of Common Interests, where all the provinces are represented and the Prime Minister heads it. So I'm sure you'll have something similar in all federating countries, all federations. Please.
So thank you. My name is Graham. I'm from the British Army.
From?
British Army. Firstly, I think just wish to express our condolences on behalf of the Royal College of Defence Studies for the loss that your city suffered last night, and for those who are still affected.
Thank you.
I wondered if you could help us to understand. We've met an enormous number of very influential people this week, and before we depart tomorrow, I would be privileged to understand if you could give us an insight into those issues which matter most to the people of your province, both today and maybe also looking forward into the future. Thank you.
Again, as a government, we put law and order at the top in terms of what interests, and I'll just mention when we got independence in 1947, our founder, Qaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah, in his inaugural speech at the Parliament, had said, first and foremost, our duty is to maintain law and order. So, start from there, the lives of the people have to be secure. What is affecting the people of this province right now? Lack of energy. We've got shortages of power, and because of that, the industry. Now you've probably seen, and it must be something like 45 degrees outside, or more than 40 right now. So, lack of electricity is one major issue. We are an agrarian society. We've got agriculture. 70% of the province's income is based on the agriculture. People are involved in agriculture. We've got severe shortage of water currently in the country, and because of that, I was this morning talking to the irrigation minister. Right now, we've got again a sharing formula for water between the provinces, like all water sharing areas. And currently, we've got about 60% shortage of what we need right now. That is going to hurt for the agriculture sector a lot, and that further on would create a food security issue for the country. So we need to work on that. Right now, we are in a situation where shortage of wheat. Pakistan in 2008, until 2008 was a wheat importing country. In 2008, the then government took certain decisions, and within 2 years we started exporting wheat. And we continued to do that until 2016 or so. And from 16 again, we've become importers of wheat. This year it's going to be difficult because the shortage in the entire world, especially the Russian-Ukrainian war, is going to have a huge impact on us. We import a lot of wheat from Ukraine. I believe there's some Ukrainian armed forces personnel in this group also. And so, we see major problems of food security leading on the, right now we've got huge economic problems. Obviously they trickle down to the provincial governments. Balance of trade, our current account deficit is huge. We need to improve our exports. We need to earn foreign exchange in order to sustain. So these are challenges facing the country, and we as a province, we've got some solutions in this province, and that's where that's what we're trying to do. For example, energy. I know this. Some of you may not like it. We have the 6th largest coal reserves in the province of Sindh, and until 3 or 4 years ago, we were not using a single ounce of coal from those reserves. We started developing power stations on that, and 4 years ago we built the first power station in Tharparkar. I don't know, Excellency, you've had a chance to visit there yet or not. So, with the electricity that we are generating, trying to ensure to adopt all environmental mitigation steps that are required. But energy shortages, we believe that in the province of Sindh we can, through the coal in Tharparkar, resolve the energy crisis in the country. We've got a lot of opportunity for clean energy. The wind corridor that we have has a potential of almost 50,000 megawatts. Currently we are generating 3,000 or so, 2,500 megawatts or so. Another 1,000 or so must be under production. Till 6 years ago we had zero production, and government worked hard on doing this. So the city of Karachi has huge potential. We've got a port, and we've got actually 2 ports in Sindh, the Karachi port and Qasim. We're trying to develop, or we want to develop a 3rd port in KT Bandar. So these are areas where we need to invest in. We're trying very hard. Obviously we don't have the resources the capital resources to put in. We're trying to get help from the federal government. We're trying to get international investment into the province. We've got a public-private partnership unit in the province of Sindh, and I'm glad to tell you that there was a review of public-private partnership units in sovereign countries of Asia, and the province of Sindh, along with the province in India, were the only 2 provinces picked and were rated along with the sovereigns, and we ranked 6th. This was an Economist review about 3 or 4 years ago, 2019, Economist review, and we were ranked 6th. The Pakistan Public-Private Partnership Unit was ranked at number 12. So we have a lot of potential here in this province. We've tried to do a number of steps for ease of doing business, so that people can come in and invest here, both locals and foreign. So I don't know, thank you.
Charles Harrison, British Army. I wonder if you could give us an insight. Hello, is that working? Well, if you could give us an insight into the impact of COVID here in the province, and how you and your team felt the impact, and also the agencies that work with you. Thank you.
All right, it has become my favorite subject, because we feel that in the province of Sindh we've led the country in order to really combat COVID as should have been done, and by the grace of Almighty Allah, we've been successful. The first case of COVID in Pakistan, there were 2 cases on the same day, the 26th of February 2020, and I'll be very candid. 2 weeks before that, we had a provincial cabinet meeting, and question was asked in the cabinet as to our preparedness for COVID. And what the response that we got was, we have no preparedness, zero, we don't know anything, literally. And the first case is on the 26th of February. There were 2 cases, one in Karachi and one in Islamabad on the same day. What we did in the province of Sindh is 26th evening around 6 p.m. we find out about the case. 26th evening the Chief Secretary held the meeting. 27th morning I formed a task force at the Chief Minister's level. I had all the relevant health, Home Department people. I had private sector experts, infectious disease experts come in. And what we did was, actually on the night of the 26th, we closed down schools for the weekend. It was a weekend. Or it was Friday, it was Thursday, sorry, it was a Wednesday. So we said we'll close down for 2 days, Thursday and Friday. And then we have the weekend and we'll review it on Monday. So next day we closed down schools. First case. I think this happened nowhere in the world. I don't know if we were acting too proactively or not, but and when we held the meeting and I got this information from the experts, we said we'll close down schools for 2 weeks. Next morning, we closed down school for 2 weeks. Within a week, we closed down the offices, and before the first death, COVID death was 17th of March. I know I may have the dates wrong. 17 in Pakistan was the 17th of March, 2020. And before that, we had literally clamped down the entire province. The federal government was not too happy at that time, but the pressure I believe that we built compelled them to close down the country. By the 23rd of March is our Pakistan Day. It was the day when the Pakistan resolution was passed in 1940. So it was a long weekend, and the entire country was closed down during that long weekend, and that was sustained till the end of March. Then we started opening up slowly. I was at this business event this morning. All the business community were very unhappy with me and with the government because we closed down the industries. We actually jailed some industrialists because they were violating the COVID restrictions. So we were very, very severe. Karachi is a city of 20 million people. The number of, and it's congested, we've got people, living in a 20 feet by 20 feet room. We've got like 20 people living in a 20 feet room in some areas of the slums here. I don't remember the exact numbers, perhaps you might have them, but God, Allah has been very kind. The losses that we sustained were minimal, and the entire country really benefited from what we did initially. Meanwhile, what we did was, because we did not have enough hospital facilities, we built from scratch, not from scratch, we were actually building a trauma center in the East District of Karachi. We converted that into an infectious disease hospital, and we had a 200-bed infectious disease hospital up and running in 3 months at that time. We've not now doing, our plan is to start research there also, and the entire complex is being changed into an infectious disease center. We upgraded our hospitals, and at no time did we have an the first month, yes, we had the panic situation in the entire world. We had this panic kind of a situation maybe for a week or 2 weeks at most. But we overcame it. We upgraded our hospital facilities, and at no time did we have this problem of running out of beds or running out of facilities. So I think we've managed it fairly well, and we've got dividends out of what we've done.
Joe Deakin from the UK Royal Navy. And
sorry.
No problem.
I'm sorry.
Thank you very much. Joe Deakin from the UK Royal Navy, and my question is about urbanisation in the round, and you described the particular circumstance with COVID, but I'm curious to understand both the opportunities and threats this provides for your governance of the province as opposed to that particular health issue?
Talking about urbanization.
Yes.
Okay. In Pakistan, Sindh is the most urbanized province, and that's primarily because of Karachi. Karachi has, the population of Karachi is about 1/3 of the province, and there are lots of people coming into Karachi, not only from other areas of Sindh, but all over Pakistan because of the economic potential that the city has. That's been our failure over the years, that we've not been able to develop our secondary cities as much. We've not been able to take industry outside Karachi. We are working on it currently. We've got a economic zone in the district of Khairpur, which is north of Sindh. There's another economic industrial area that we're developing in, or almost ready, in Larkana, which is also north of Sindh. Outside Karachi, we're developing an economic zone in Hadiji, which is part of Karachi, because it's 30 kilometers outside Karachi, so ultimately it will become part of Karachi. We've got another industrial area in Nuriabad, which is 100 kilometers, maybe 80 kilometers from Karachi, but it's also become what we've unfortunately not been able to do is develop other facilities there so that people can live and they can take their children to school there and start living there. So we've got people going from Karachi into Nuriabad and coming back every day, except for the labor, and even the labor we don't have in a facility. So that's been our failure, that we've not been able to develop our secondary cities. We've not been able to provide the kind of facilities in the rural areas. We're trying to do that, but we're having a hard time sort of achieving what.
Thank you, Sonia Fidian from the UK Royal Air Force. Yesterday we were privileged to visit the National Security Division and learn about your national security policy, and one of the aspects being national cohesion. And I just welcome your views on the identity of Pakistan and its people. If you'd be willing to share that with us, thank you.
The identity?
Yes, what identity of Pakistan and its people mean for you?
National security policy.
Thank
Okay.
you.
This national security policy has been evolving. A major step that we took was in 2014, 2015. We had this unfortunate incident in Peshawar, where the Army Public School was attacked, and I've forgotten the number now, but a number of small children were, more than 140 children were martyred by terrorists. Then there was, the realization was already there, but then everybody got together, and a national action plan was formed in 2015. It had a 20-point agenda. We had very clear description as to what part, which had to be done at the federal level, what had to be done at the provincial level, what was joint responsibility. And we, at the provincial level, we formed what we call the Epics Committee, and we've actually got a meeting later in the afternoon of this Epics Committee, where the civil administration, the politicians, the military establishment, the intelligence establishment, we all get together and review the situation. With the federal government, there's the NACTA, and what the acronym is, National Counter-Terrorism Authority, the agency which handles this. We'd like a better sort of relationship with NACTA, and we've talked about it. I've talked about it with the Prime Minister, and he's agreed that we need to sort of activate NACTA in such a way that the primary issue that we have is intelligence. For example, the Chinese attack on the Chinese teachers in Karachi, we did not have any prior specific intelligence information. We blast yesterday again, but the blast was somebody left an IED on a bicycle, in a crowded area. perhaps blasted it from some distance away. We, those issues we have to, I don't know if I've answered your question in terms of what you.
Thank you, sir. Matt Radnall from the UK Royal Air Force. We've looked this week at the tremendous economic potential that exists in Pakistan.
Tremendous?
Economic potential. Potential for economic growth. But in some sectors there's a degree of frustration expressed at the inability to realise that potential. I wonder whether you share some of that frustration, and if so, what are the constraints in your mind that are holding Pakistan back from realising that potential?
Yes, the potential is huge, absolutely. As I said, the province of Sindh alone, I won't talk about the other province, the province of Sindh alone, we have the 6th largest coal reserves, which I just mentioned. We've got this wind corridor, so we can have a mix of, say, dirty energy and clean energy. We've got a port which we've not been able to exploit fully. Our agriculture, the shortage of water that I spoke about earlier is there, but we've not been able to adapt ourselves properly for the climate change, for new seeds which can bring in more production. The population growth is something that we've not been able to manage fully. So yes, and that is the reason the frustration is there, because everybody realizes this. Issues, we perhaps want more I'd say the different stakeholders need to be more cooperative. And I'll only talk about the political side, won't go anywhere else. I believe that we need to, and we need to have, for example, we did not have a very good working relationship with the federal government for the last 3.5 years. Fault was theirs or fault was ours, that's irrespective, but we need to have a better relationship, and that is where the frustration comes in. That is where we are not able to exploit the economic potential that we have. And for this reason, back in 2007, 7th Charter of Democracy, 6 or 7, the two main political parties at that time, the Pakistan People's Party and the Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz, had signed the Charter of Democracy, and we wanted to sort of forget the past and work towards the future. Unfortunately, we've not been able to implement it, and most recently, Chairman Bilawal Bhutto Zardari had met the PMLN leadership, and they talked about updating the Charter of Democracy, and the name came out as Charter of Democracy. So what we need to do is to have all the stakeholders in place. Unfortunately, we polarize the country a lot, and that is the reason for the frustration. You can blame all of us for that, but then obviously there are people who are to be blamed more than others. We need to.
Good afternoon, sir. I'm Yuri Dolotov from Ukrainian Army. My question is very linked to the previous one. And during your answer, you mentioned about the huge potential which Karachi has and province itself. So my question is, and to develop this potential, you probably need more investments, more foreign investments. In relating to this, my question is, what are key challenges do you see to attract more foreign investments in local, state and regional levels?
I'll tell you, for Karachi, back in 2015-16, we, along with the World Bank, we got a Karachi transformation plan made. And what we did was that we identified the gaps in water, in sewerage, in transportation. And at that time, The estimate that we had come out with was $3 billion to be immediately invested in Karachi. Unfortunately, that kind of money neither the provincial government nor the federal government has. And we started tapping international resources. I've talked about the public-private partnership model or the unit that we have and the laws that we framed. We were able to get the Kuwaitis interested in a pipeline. I've talked about Thar, the power plant there. You need to take water to a desert, about 300 kilometers over now, 2 to 300 kilometers for the power plant, because it can't run without water. The subsoil water there is not enough. The aquifer is not enough, and the cost in terms of Pakistani rupees was about 28 billion or so, 28 billion, and we normally spend in the province about 100 to 120 billion rupees in development each year. That's the space that we have. So obviously we could not fund it ourselves, and we got the Kuwaitis interested, and they are doing that. We hope to get other international agencies. We've got the World Bank working with us, the Asian Development Bank. The Asian Development Bank is currently funding its loan 65 billion rupee project for mass transit in Karachi. The World Bank is funding another project for mass transit in Karachi. So we've got the interest from the international sector. We're pitching more. There's the week after next in the World Economic Forum, for the first time, there is, on the sidelines of the forum, for the number of years we've been having a Pakistani breakfast where investors come in and Pakistan is pushed. This year they've given us a slot for Sindh apart from Pakistan. So there's a lunch in Davos which the investment department they facilitated us, and we are going to present and try and get some investments there. The impediments or the bottlenecks, primarily obviously the economic situation in the country. Investors who come in need to be assured of the return. So that is one issue. The law and order has always been a problem, but it's much, much better than what it was. And as we said, we need to, we have a number of plans of leveraging our assets so that we can attract foreign interest and attract people who want to come and make a profit from their investment, and at the same time provide us the facilities. We have been working on it. We've had some partial success, but I believe we've come to a stage where now we are going to go up. The current economic situation is definitely something, because obviously these investors would shy away. We're hoping that the difficult decisions are taken at the federal level. We need to take this crisis head on instead of pushing dirt under the carpet and then waiting for it to really be more dangerous as times go by. You want to ask a second question? Sure.
I would normally be allowed to ask a question. One of the themes of the course is strategic leadership. So we invite the members not only to reflect on the challenges of constructing strategy, but how do leaders go about communicating that strategy and then delivering it. Given the enormity of your role and some of the challenges that you've already shared with us, would you be able to offer some insights into your sense of what it means to be a strategic leader, and perhaps some of the tips that you might offer my members, who are after all the next generation of senior leaders when they return to their countries?
Okay, it's kind of well, I'll just tell you myself, I was not in politics until 2002. 2002 was the first time that I contested elections. My family has been in politics, and before that I was working in the corporate sector for a very long time. I've worked in the UK, I've worked in London, I've worked in Pakistan, obviously, worked in London, I've worked in the Middle East, in Kuwait, I've worked in the US, And with all this experience, I came back, and having come from a political family, I believe you need a mix of some kind, and that has helped me tremendously. Even now, I feel that the only reason that I've been able to contribute to whatever little that I have done now is that because I think I relate very well with the people of this country. And this is something that is ingrained, and I'll tell you, obviously my political idols are Shahid Zulfikar Ali Bhutto and Shahid Mohtaram Benazir Bhutto. And this is what I've seen in them, and this is what I see in the political party, that we work very, the passion that we have for the poor of this country is what drives us, and which is obviously it has its disadvantages. The lobbyist or the other side does not like it that much. So those are the impediments, but I believe that if you have the interest of the people in your minds and you work towards that, and if you're working, whatever area that you're working in the armed forces, you're in the corporate sector, the loyalty to the your profession is perhaps the primary thing you need to develop in order to become a leader. That'd be my say.
Chief Minister, sir, on behalf of the Royal College of Defence Studies and on behalf of the British High Commissioner here in Pakistan, may I take this opportunity to sincerely thank you for hosting us and also giving us your insight into the relationship between the federal government and the provincial government and the workings of your province and the huge potential that the province holds. We are really thankful for those thoughts, and these will go a long way into solidifying what we have gathered for the whole week as far as our study is concerned in Pakistan. On a sad note, we offer our condolences to the life lost and also a quick recovery to those injured, and we hope everything will be okay. On that note, I invite my fellow members to thank you for a wonderful time in all of Pakistan and here in your province. Please.
Thank you. Thank you. So how long are you here?